When 29-year-old Isabella Martinez walked into Sunset Manor Assisted Living on her grandmother's 90th birthday, she expected to find Dolores celebrating with cake and family photos. Instead, she discovered a frail woman who believed her entire family had abandoned her, while $165,000 of her life savings had vanished into the hands of someone she trusted most. This is case file nav 087, and I'm your family wealth detective. Today's case exposes how Marcus Rivera, a stepfamily member with power of attorney authority, executed one of the most calculated schemes of elder financial exploitation I've documented, combining systematic emotional isolation with sophisticated financial fraud, all while nursing staff watched the psychological abuse unfold in real time. The numbers tell a devastating story. Over 18 months, Marcus stole $165,000 from his 89-year-old step-grandmother's accounts through fabricated invoices, fictitious care services, and cryptocurrency investments. But the financial theft was only half the crime. Using textbook manipulation tactics, he convinced both Dolores and the nursing facility that family visits were harmful to her mental health, effectively cutting her off from the people who could have protected her wealth. What makes this case particularly significant is the role of healthcare witnesses. Multiple nurses and staff members at Sunset Manor documented Marcus's abusive behavior, creating a paper trail that became crucial evidence in court. Their testimony revealed how financial predators exploit the healthcare system itself, using medical facilities as both cover for their crimes and weapons for victim isolation. This case demonstrates three critical vulnerabilities in family wealth protection that most people never consider. First, the dangerous assumption that geographic proximity equals trustworthiness when selecting power of attorney agents. Second, how blended family dynamics create unique opportunities for financial predators who understand family psychology. Third, the way healthcare facilities can become unwitting accomplices in elder abuse when staff aren't trained to recognize manipulation tactics. Marcus Rivera wasn't a stranger who targeted vulnerable elderly people at random. He was family, someone who had celebrated 15 Christmas dinners with Dolores, someone who called her grandma and earned her complete trust through years of relationship building. He understood her fears about becoming a burden to the family, and he weaponized those fears to maintain complete control over her finances and social connections. The legal framework surrounding this case involves multiple federal and state statutes. Elder financial exploitation, as defined under the Elder Abuse Prevention and Prosecution Act, carries enhanced penalties when perpetrated by someone in a fiduciary relationship. Power of attorney abuse represents a violation of fundamental trust relationships that courts treat with particular severity. When combined with wire fraud and mail fraud charges related to the fictitious invoicing scheme, Marcus faced potential federal prosecution under the mail fraud statute 18 U.S.C. 1341. But understanding the legal definitions isn't enough to protect your family's wealth. The psychological components of this case reveal sophisticated manipulation techniques that any family member with financial access could potentially employ. Marcus used a combination of isolation tactics, gaslighting, and false medical authority to maintain control over his victim, while simultaneously convincing healthcare professionals that his behavior was protective rather than predatory. The investigation that exposed Marcus's crimes began with a single, unannounced visit. When Isabella arrived at Sunset Manor without Marcus's knowledge, she discovered discrepancies in her grandmother's understanding of family relationships that immediately raised red flags. Within 48 hours, she had contacted the facility's nursing supervisor, obtained financial records, and begun building the case that would ultimately result in Marcus's conviction. Healthcare facility staff played a crucial role in this case, but not initially as protectors. Nurse Patricia Williams, with 15 years of eldercare experience, had documented concerning interactions between Marcus and Dolores for months before Isabella's discovery visit. Her detailed incident reports became the foundation for proving emotional abuse charges that significantly enhanced Marcus's eventual sentence. The forensic accounting investigation revealed the sophisticated nature of Marcus's theft operation. He had created multiple false companies with professional letterhead, generated invoices for non-existent medical equipment, and established what appeared to be legitimate care service contracts. The money trail led through personal accounts, cryptocurrency exchanges, and high-risk investment platforms where Marcus had gambled away thousands of dollars of his step-grandmother's life savings. When this case went to trial, the prosecution presented evidence of systematic financial exploitation combined with documented psychological abuse. The court heard testimony from multiple healthcare workers who had witnessed Marcus's manipulative behavior, financial experts who traced the theft operation, and family members who described the devastating impact on Dolores's mental and physical health. The judge sentenced Marcus Rivera to 5 years in federal prison for elder abuse and financial exploitation, ordered full restitution of the stolen funds, and imposed additional penalties for the psychological harm inflicted on the victim. This case established important precedents about healthcare facility obligations in recognizing and reporting suspected elder abuse. Throughout this analysis, I'll show you exactly how Marcus's scheme operated, why traditional family protection strategies failed to detect his crimes, and most importantly, the 3 essential safeguards that could have prevented this $165,000 theft. You'll learn to recognize the warning signs of isolation manipulation, understand your legal rights when family members have power of attorney authority, and implement the financial oversight systems that protect elderly loved ones from predatory family members. By the end of this case study, you'll understand why proximity and family status don't guarantee trustworthiness in financial matters, how healthcare facilities can become unwitting partners in elder abuse, and the specific legal protections every family needs to implement before crisis situations arise. The Martinez-Rivera blended family appeared to function seamlessly for over 17 years, but beneath the surface lay psychological vulnerabilities that financial predators learn to exploit with devastating precision. Understanding how Marcus Rivera gained access to Dolores Martinez's trust requires examining the complex dynamics that make step-family relationships both powerful bonds and dangerous blind spots in wealth protection. When Carmen Martinez married Roberto Rivera in 2006, she brought 12-year-old Isabella into a household with 15-year-old Marcus. The age gap created natural mentor-mentee dynamics, with Marcus often helping Isabella navigate high school challenges while she looked up to him as the older, more experienced sibling. Dolores, Carmen's mother, embraced this blended family structure wholeheartedly, frequently commenting that Marcus felt like her real grandson despite no blood relationship. This emotional integration represents the first vulnerability factor in blended family wealth protection. Dolores's genuine affection for Marcus created what psychologists term earned familial trust, a bond that can actually become stronger than biological relationships because it's built on choice rather than obligation. Marcus understood this dynamic and cultivated it deliberately over nearly 2 decades, positioning himself as the devoted grandson who chose to stay close to home while Isabella pursued her career in Denver. The geographic factor amplified existing trust vulnerabilities. When Isabella moved to Colorado for her marketing career, Marcus remained within 30 minutes of Dolores's home, volunteering for regular visits, handling minor household repairs, and accompanying her to medical appointments. This proximity created what eldercare experts call caregiver positioning, the process by which one family member becomes viewed as the primary support system through consistent physical presence. Blended families face unique challenges in power of attorney selection that traditional families rarely consider. Blood relatives often assume they understand each other's motivations based on shared history and genetic relationships. Step-family members, however, may have different financial pressures, different relationships with other family members, and different long-term obligations that create conflicting interests in inheritance planning. Marcus Rivera's insurance sales background provided him with sophisticated knowledge about elder financial planning, trust structures, and legal documentation processes. He used this professional expertise to position himself as the logical choice for managing Dolores's financial affairs when she needed assistance. Family members viewed his insurance knowledge as a valuable asset rather than recognizing it as training in financial manipulation techniques. The transition to assisted living created additional psychological vulnerabilities that Marcus exploited systematically. Elderly individuals moving to institutional care often experience what gerontologists term autonomy anxiety, fear of losing independence and becoming burdensome to family members. Dolores expressed these concerns repeatedly, worrying that her care costs would drain resources meant for Isabella's future and feeling guilty about requiring assistance with daily activities. Marcus weaponized these natural fears through careful psychological manipulation. He would validate Dolores's concerns about being a burden, while simultaneously positioning himself as the family member willing to sacrifice for her well-being. During family conversations, he would subtly suggest that Isabella was overwhelmed with her new career and that frequent visits might add stress to her already busy life. The warning signs of isolation manipulation were present months before Isabella's discovery, but they manifested in ways that seemed protective rather than predatory. Marcus began filtering family communications, telling Dolores that Isabella was dealing with work stress and didn't want to worry her grandmother with professional problems. He suggested that shorter, less frequent visits would be better for everyone's mental health. Healthcare facilities often become unwitting partners in isolation schemes because staff members rely on family-provided information about patient preferences and family dynamics. Marcus presented himself to Sunset Manor staff as the primary family contact, explaining that other relatives lived far away and that too many visitors could confuse or upset Dolores. This narrative seemed reasonable to nursing staff who had observed similar patterns in other families. Power of attorney selection red flags were evident throughout Marcus's positioning process, but they were disguised as helpful family management. He volunteered to handle all financial documentation, suggesting that having multiple people involved in Dolores's care planning would create confusion and inefficiency. He emphasized his local presence and professional background, while subtly discouraging other family members from seeking independent information about care options or costs. The blended family structure created additional complications in financial oversight because biological children and stepchildren may have different legal standings in inheritance matters. Marcus understood that his position as a step-grandchild might complicate future inheritance rights, creating financial incentives to maximize current access to family resources while minimizing other family members' awareness of financial details. Trust exploitation in stepfamilies often involves leveraging the voluntary nature of the relationship. Marcus could point to nearly 2 decades of choosing to maintain close relationships with his stepfamily, demonstrating commitment that might be questioned in biological relatives who maintained distance. This proof of dedication became a powerful tool for maintaining financial access and deflecting suspicion about his motives. The psychological profile of financial predators within families reveals common patterns that transcend biological relationships. They identify vulnerable family members, position themselves as indispensable caregivers, and gradually expand their control over financial and social connections. Marcus's behavior followed this template precisely, but the blended family dynamics provided additional cover for his manipulation tactics. Understanding these background factors becomes crucial for recognizing similar situations in other families. The combination of geographic proximity, professional financial knowledge, voluntary family relationships, and healthcare transitions created a perfect environment for financial exploitation. Each factor alone might not raise concerns, but together they formed a pattern that should have triggered additional oversight measures. If this case is helping you understand family financial crime, hit that like button. It helps me reach more families who need this education. Marcus Rivera's criminal operation followed a sophisticated 3-phase methodology that combined psychological manipulation with financial fraud in ways that maximized theft while minimizing detection risk. The systematic nature of his approach reveals how financial predators within families operate with calculated precision using intimate knowledge of victim psychology and institutional weaknesses to maintain long-term access to wealth. The psychological abuse component began 6 months before the first documented theft, establishing what forensic psychologists term dependency conditioning. Marcus initiated regular conversations with Dolores about her fears of becoming a burden, validating her concerns, while positioning himself as the only family member truly committed to her well-being. During visits to Sunset Manor, Marcus would arrive with carefully prepared talking points designed to increase Dolores's anxiety about other family relationships. He would mention Isabella's work stress, suggesting that frequent grandmother visits were adding pressure to her already demanding career. He fabricated conflicts between family members, telling Dolores that Isabella had expressed frustration about care costs and questioning whether assisted living was necessary. The isolation tactics escalated through controlled information management. Marcus became Dolores's primary source of information about family activities, filtering communications to create the impression that other relatives were gradually losing interest in her welfare. He would delay delivering messages from Isabella, explain away missed calls as evidence of Isabella's busy schedule, and subtly suggest that younger family members were naturally focused on their own lives rather than elderly relatives. Healthcare facility manipulation became central to the isolation strategy. Marcus presented himself to nursing staff as the knowledgeable family member who understood Dolores's medical needs and psychological patterns. He explained that she became agitated after visits from other relatives, claiming that multiple visitors confused her and caused depression that lasted for days. This narrative seemed medically reasonable to staff members who weren't trained in psychological manipulation recognition. The authority positioning within the healthcare facility required sophisticated manipulation of institutional hierarchies. Marcus would arrive during shift changes when regular staff might not be available, introducing himself to new employees as the primary family contact. He carried official-looking documentation about Dolores's care preferences, creating the impression that his authority had been formally established through medical and legal processes. Staff manipulation involved exploiting healthcare workers' natural desire to support family caregivers. Marcus would praise staff members for their dedication while expressing concern about how difficult visits from distant relatives were for everyone involved. He positioned himself as the buffer who protected both Dolores and the nursing staff from unnecessary complications. Staff feel that cooperating with his restrictions was helping rather than enabling abuse. The theft operation began with small withdrawals that could be easily explained as legitimate care expenses. Marcus started with $500 to $800 monthly amounts for additional comfort items and supplemental care services that weren't covered by insurance. These initial thefts served multiple purposes: testing financial monitoring systems, establishing patterns that wouldn't trigger bank alerts, and creating documentation trails that appeared legitimate. Financial escalation followed predictable patterns documented in elder fraud cases. After 3 months of successful small-scale theft, Marcus increased withdrawal amounts to $2,000 to $3,000 monthly, explaining these as costs for specialized medical equipment and therapeutic services recommended by facility staff. The gradual increase prevented sudden account balance changes that might alert other family members or financial institutions. The false documentation scheme required extensive preparation and professional presentation. Marcus created fictitious companies with names that sounded medical and legitimate: Senior Wellness Solutions, Advanced Care Technologies, and Therapeutic Support Services. Each company had professionally designed letterhead, fake addresses, and telephone numbers that routed to Marcus's personal phone. Invoice fraud involved sophisticated formatting that mimicked legitimate medical billing. Marcus studied actual medical equipment catalogs and therapeutic service providers to create realistic product descriptions and pricing structures. The invoices included technical terminology, reference numbers, and authorization codes that appeared authentic to anyone without specialized medical billing knowledge. The cryptocurrency conversion strategy represented the most sophisticated element of Marcus's financial operation. Rather than simply depositing stolen funds into personal accounts, he transferred money through multiple cryptocurrency exchanges, making the theft harder to trace and recover. He understood that digital currency transactions create additional complexity for forensic accountants and law enforcement investigators. High-risk investment gambling consumed significant portions of the stolen funds. Marcus used day trading platforms and volatile cryptocurrency investments to attempt multiplying the stolen money, apparently believing that successful investments might allow him to return funds before detection. This gambling behavior is common among financial predators who convince themselves they're borrowing rather than stealing. The cover operation required maintaining appearances of legitimate financial management while concealing the scope of actual theft. Marcus provided Dolores with simplified account statements that showed reduced balances due to care expenses without revealing the true extent of withdrawals. These false statements satisfied her curiosity about financial status while preventing detailed scrutiny. Family communication management involved controlling information flow between Dolores and other relatives. Marcus would coach Dolores before phone calls with Isabella, suggesting topics of conversation and explaining why certain subjects might be too complicated or too stressful to discuss. This coaching created the impression that Dolores was naturally avoiding financial topics rather than being prevented from discussing them. Healthcare facility cooperation was maintained through regular updates about Dolores's condition and family dynamics. Marcus would meet with nursing supervisors to discuss her emotional fragility and the need to limit overstimulation from multiple visitors. These meetings reinforced his authority while creating institutional support for his isolation tactics. The documentation management system involved maintaining two sets of records: authentic financial documents that Marcus controlled, and simplified summaries that he shared with Dolores and occasionally with other family members. This dual system prevented comprehensive oversight while maintaining the appearance of transparency and legitimate financial management. Emergency response preparation included ready explanations for potential questions about financial irregularities. Marcus had prepared responses for inquiries about large withdrawals, unusual account activity, or missing funds. These explanations involved complex medical terminology and references to insurance complications that would discourage detailed investigation by family members without healthcare expertise. The psychological conditioning component continued throughout the financial exploitation phase. Marcus reinforced Dolores's fears about being abandoned by family while positioning himself as her only reliable advocate. He would express concern about other family members' commitment levels while demonstrating his own dedication through increased visit frequency and emotional support. Staff relationship cultivation involved building personal connections with healthcare workers that extended beyond professional interactions. Marcus would bring small gifts, remember personal details about staff members' lives, and express appreciation for their dedication. These relationship investments created emotional bonds that made staff less likely to question his authority or report concerning behaviors. The methodology Marcus employed demonstrates how financial predators combine multiple criminal techniques to maximize theft while minimizing detection risk. The systematic approach reveals planning and premeditation that elevates simple theft into complex criminal conspiracy involving fraud, elder abuse, and psychological manipulation. Understanding these methodologies becomes crucial for recognizing similar patterns in other family situations. The combination of emotional manipulation, institutional exploitation, and financial fraud creates a framework that other predators can adapt to different family dynamics and care situations. The exposure of Marcus Rivera's criminal operation began with a single decision that circumvented his carefully constructed control systems: Isabella Martinez's unannounced visit to Sunset Manor on March 15, 2023. This spontaneous action bypassed the communication filters and scheduling restrictions that had protected Marcus's scheme for 18 months, creating the first crack in what appeared to be an impenetrable deception framework. Isabella's arrival at Sunset Manor without prior notification immediately disrupted established patterns that Marcus had cultivated with facility staff. When she requested to see her grandmother, nursing staff consulted their visitor log system and found restrictions that surprised Isabella, limitations she had never agreed to and knew nothing about. The disconnect between Isabella's expectations and the facility's procedures raised immediate red flags that prompted deeper investigation. The conversation with Dolores revealed devastating discrepancies in family communication that Isabella recognized as impossible fabrications. When her grandmother mentioned that Isabella had been too busy with work to visit, Isabella realized that someone had been actively managing information flow between family members. The specific details Dolores provided about Isabella's supposed work problems were completely inaccurate, indicating systematic manipulation rather than simple misunderstanding. Nurse Patricia Williams became the crucial healthcare witness whose documentation transformed individual incidents into comprehensive evidence of abuse. Her 15 years of eldercare experience had taught her to recognize manipulation tactics, and she had been maintaining detailed incident reports about Marcus's behavior for months. When Isabella requested information about her grandmother's care, Patricia made the professional decision to share her concerns about patterns she had observed but couldn't previously act upon. The incident report documentation revealed sophisticated record-keeping that became essential evidence in legal proceedings. Patricia had noted specific dates, times, and locations of concerning interactions between Marcus and Dolores. Her reports included direct quotes, behavioral observations, and follow-up assessments of Dolores's emotional state after Marcus's visits. This systematic documentation provided the objective evidence necessary to prove psychological abuse in court. Isabella's initial contact with Dolores's primary bank triggered automated fraud detection protocols when she requested account information as a family member. The bank's elder financial abuse prevention team had been trained to recognize patterns of exploitation, and the combination of large withdrawals, unusual vendor payments, and restricted family access created immediate concerns that warranted detailed investigation. The forensic accounting process began with comprehensive transaction analysis spanning 2 years of account activity. Certified fraud examiners used specialized software to identify patterns, correlations, and anomalies that human review might miss. The analysis revealed escalating withdrawal amounts, timing patterns that corresponded to facility visit schedules, and vendor payments to companies that couldn't be verified through standard business databases. Bank cooperation became essential for establishing the financial evidence chain. Under the Bank Secrecy Act and Elder Protection Regulations, financial institutions have specific obligations to report suspected elder financial abuse to appropriate authorities. The bank's internal investigation team had already flagged several transactions as potentially fraudulent, but they needed family member complaints to initiate formal reporting procedures. The cryptocurrency tracking investigation required specialized expertise in digital currency forensics. Law enforcement cybercrime units used blockchain analysis tools to trace the movement of stolen funds through multiple exchange platforms. This process revealed that Marcus had converted over $85,000 of stolen funds into various cryptocurrencies, then lost significant amounts through high-risk trading activities on unregulated platforms. Documentation authentication became a critical component of the financial investigation. Expert analysis of the false invoices Marcus had created revealed numerous indicators of fraud: inconsistent formatting, impossible service dates, fake business addresses, and telephone numbers that routed to personal devices. These technical details provided concrete evidence of deliberate fraud rather than accounting errors or misunderstandings. The multi-jurisdictional investigation involved coordination between local police, state elder abuse investigators, and federal financial crime units. Marcus's use of mail and electronic communications to perpetrate fraud triggered federal jurisdiction under wire fraud and mail fraud statutes, while the elder abuse components fell under state criminal codes that carried enhanced penalties for crimes against vulnerable adults. Healthcare facility cooperation expanded beyond individual staff testimony to include institutional policy documentation. Sunset Manor's administration provided visitor logs, communication records, and staff training materials that demonstrated how Marcus had manipulated facility procedures to support his isolation tactics. This institutional evidence proved that Marcus had systematically deceived healthcare professionals as part of his criminal scheme. The legal evidence chain required careful preservation of both physical and digital documentation. Law enforcement investigators obtained search warrants for Marcus's residence, vehicle, and electronic devices. The digital forensics examination of his computers and smartphones revealed extensive evidence of the false company creation process, cryptocurrency trading activities, and communications with Dolores that demonstrated psychological manipulation tactics. Expert witness preparation involved assembling professionals who could explain complex aspects of the case to judge and jury. Forensic accountants prepared to testify about financial fraud patterns. Geriatric psychologists were retained to explain elder abuse dynamics, and healthcare administration experts were prepared to discuss facility policies and staff obligations in suspected abuse situations. The family's response to the discovered abuse required immediate protective actions and long-term legal strategies. Isabella contacted Adult Protective Services within 24 hours of her initial discovery, triggering state-mandated investigation procedures designed to protect vulnerable adults from ongoing exploitation. This official reporting created legal documentation that supported subsequent criminal prosecution efforts. Emergency financial protection measures included freezing accounts, changing power of attorney arrangements, and implementing court-supervised financial management. Isabella petitioned for emergency guardianship to prevent additional theft, while longer-term protection systems could be established. These legal procedures required extensive documentation, but provided immediate security for remaining assets. The coordination with law enforcement required family members to provide comprehensive information about Marcus's access, behavior patterns, and relationship history with Dolores. This family intelligence became crucial for understanding the full scope of the criminal operation and identifying evidence that investigators might not discover through standard financial analysis. Healthcare facility advocacy involved working with Sunset Manor administration to implement new procedures that would prevent similar abuse in the future. Isabella requested staff training updates, visitor policy modifications, and enhanced communication protocols between facility staff and multiple family members. These systemic changes extended protection beyond Dolores's individual situation. The legal representation strategy required attorneys with specific expertise in elder financial abuse cases. The complexity of combining criminal prosecution support with civil restitution recovery demanded legal professionals who understood both criminal procedure and asset recovery techniques. This specialized representation became essential for maximizing both justice outcomes and financial recovery possibilities. Family communication restoration became a therapeutic priority alongside legal proceedings. Dolores required professional counseling to process the psychological trauma of believing her family had abandoned her, while simultaneously learning that someone she trusted had betrayed that trust. The emotional recovery process paralleled the legal justice process, with both components necessary for complete resolution. The investigation process reveals how financial crimes against elderly family members require coordinated responses from healthcare institutions, financial organizations, law enforcement agencies, and family advocacy systems. The complexity of Marcus's scheme demanded sophisticated detection and response methods that extended far beyond simple financial monitoring. The prosecution of Marcus Rivera represented a landmark case in elder financial abuse litigation, combining federal wire fraud charges with state-level elder abuse statutes to create comprehensive accountability for both the financial and psychological components of his crimes. The legal proceedings established important precedents about healthcare facility obligations and family member responsibilities in protecting vulnerable elderly relatives. Federal prosecutors filed charges under the Elder Abuse Prevention and Prosecution Act, which enhanced penalties for financial crimes targeting individuals over 60 years of age. The indictment included wire fraud charges for the electronic transfer of stolen funds, mail fraud for the fictitious invoice scheme, and aggravated elder abuse for the systematic psychological manipulation that enabled the financial exploitation. The prosecution's strategy focused on demonstrating the deliberate and systematic nature of Marcus's criminal operation rather than treating it as simple theft or family financial mismanagement. Federal prosecutors presented evidence showing premeditation, sophisticated planning, and calculated exploitation of trust relationships that elevated the charges beyond basic fraud into organized criminal activity targeting a vulnerable population. State prosecutors coordinated with federal authorities to ensure comprehensive coverage of all criminal aspects. The state charges included elder psychological abuse, violation of fiduciary duty, and exploitation of a vulnerable adult. This dual prosecution approach ensured that Marcus faced accountability for both the financial theft and the emotional harm inflicted on his victim. The grand jury proceedings included testimony from banking officials, healthcare professionals, digital forensics experts, and family members. The comprehensive evidence presentation demonstrated how Marcus's crimes crossed multiple legal jurisdictions and violated numerous federal and state statutes designed to protect elderly individuals from financial exploitation. Nurse Patricia Williams provided crucial testimony about the systematic nature of Marcus's manipulation tactics and the institutional vulnerabilities he exploited. Her 15 years of eldercare experience allowed her to explain how Marcus's behavior differed from normal family caregiver patterns, and why his restrictions on family visits raised professional concerns about potential abuse. The healthcare testimony established that multiple facility staff members had observed concerning interactions but lacked clear protocols for reporting suspected psychological abuse by family members. Patricia's detailed incident reports provided objective documentation of Marcus's manipulative conversations with Dolores, including specific quotes and behavioral observations that demonstrated calculated psychological harm. Sunset Manor's nursing supervisor testified about facility policies regarding family visitor restrictions and how Marcus had manipulated these policies to support his isolation tactics. The testimony revealed gaps in staff training about recognizing and reporting elder abuse when perpetrated by seemingly legitimate family caregivers rather than facility personnel or strangers. The healthcare witnesses explained how Marcus exploited their professional desire to support family caregivers and respect family dynamics. Their testimony demonstrated how financial predators can use healthcare institutions as unwitting accomplices by presenting themselves as protective family members while actually facilitating continued abuse. Medical expert testimony provided crucial context about the psychological impact of isolation on elderly individuals in healthcare facilities. Geriatric psychiatrists explained how systematic isolation and false information about family relationships can cause depression, cognitive decline, and physical health deterioration in vulnerable elderly patients. The federal court sentenced Marcus Rivera to 5 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation with specific conditions prohibiting contact with elderly individuals outside his immediate family. The sentence reflected federal sentencing guidelines for elder financial abuse, while considering the sophisticated nature of his criminal operation and the psychological harm inflicted on the victim. The restitution order required Marcus to repay $165,000 in stolen funds plus interest and court costs, totaling approximately $185,000. The court established a payment schedule based on Marcus's future earning capacity while incarcerated and during probation, ensuring that victim compensation remained a priority throughout the sentence period. Asset forfeiture proceedings targeted the remaining proceeds from Marcus's cryptocurrency investments and seized personal property purchased with stolen funds. The court ordered the liquidation of his vehicle, electronics, and other assets purchased during the period of financial exploitation to partially satisfy the restitution obligations. The court imposed additional penalties, specifically related to the elder abuse components of his crimes. Marcus was required to complete psychological counseling focused on elder abuse prevention and was permanently barred from serving in any financial management capacity for elderly individuals, including power of attorney roles for non-immediate family members. The case established important legal precedents regarding healthcare facility obligations in recognizing and reporting suspected elder abuse by family members. The court's findings emphasized that healthcare institutions have affirmative duties to question family-imposed visitor restrictions that appear to isolate patients from legitimate support systems. The judicial ruling required Sunset Manor and similar facilities to implement enhanced staff training programs specifically addressing psychological elder abuse recognition. The court found that healthcare professionals need specialized education to distinguish between legitimate family caregiving decisions and manipulative isolation tactics used by financial predators. The precedent established mandatory reporting protocols when healthcare staff observe concerning patterns in family caregiver behavior. The ruling specified that facility personnel cannot simply accept family members' claims about patient preferences without independent verification and documentation of the patient's actual desires regarding family contact. The court's decision created legal obligations for healthcare facilities to maintain detailed documentation of family dynamics and visitor patterns. This documentation requirement ensures that concerning behaviors are recorded systematically rather than dismissed as isolated incidents or personality conflicts. The legal precedent extended liability protection for healthcare workers who report suspected elder abuse in good faith, even when the suspected abuser is a family member with apparent legal authority. This protection encourages healthcare professionals to prioritize patient safety over avoiding family conflict or institutional complications. The sentencing judge emphasized that this case demonstrated how elder financial abuse has evolved beyond simple theft into sophisticated criminal operations that exploit institutional vulnerabilities and family trust relationships. The court's comprehensive approach to addressing both financial and psychological components of elder abuse created a framework for future prosecutions of similar crimes. The legal proceedings resulted in policy changes at healthcare facilities throughout the jurisdiction, with mandatory implementation of enhanced elder abuse recognition training and reporting protocols. These systemic improvements extended the case's impact beyond individual justice to institutional reform that protects other vulnerable elderly individuals. The successful prosecution demonstrated that complex elder financial abuse cases require coordinated responses from multiple legal and healthcare systems, establishing models for future investigations and prosecutions of family-perpetrated financial crimes against elderly victims. The Marcus Rivera case provides a comprehensive blueprint for protecting elderly family members from financial exploitation while maintaining their dignity and independence. The prevention strategies that emerge from this analysis address the specific vulnerabilities that allowed Marcus's scheme to succeed, creating actionable protection frameworks that any family can implement regardless of their financial resources or legal expertise. The first essential protection strategy involves implementing mandatory oversight mechanisms that prevent any single individual from exercising unchecked financial control over elderly family members. This system requires establishing what legal experts call dual authorization protocols for significant financial decisions, ensuring that multiple family members must approve major expenditures or account changes. The power of attorney document itself must include specific oversight provisions that weren't present in Dolores's original legal documentation. Modern power of attorney agreements should require monthly financial reporting to designated family members, mandatory approval from multiple parties for withdrawals exceeding predetermined amounts, and automatic review triggers when spending patterns change significantly from established baselines. Financial institution cooperation becomes crucial in implementing effective oversight systems. Banks and investment firms should receive formal instructions to notify multiple family members about large withdrawals, unusual account activity, or requests to change contact information. These notification requirements create multiple checkpoints that prevent isolated financial management from becoming financial exploitation. The accountability system must include regular family financial review meetings, either in person or through video conferences, where the power of attorney holder presents detailed spending reports, and answers questions from other family members. These meetings should occur monthly during the first year of power of attorney activation, then quarterly once patterns are established and trust is maintained. Documentation requirements for power of attorney holders should include maintaining receipts for all expenditures, providing written explanations for unusual expenses, and submitting to annual financial audits conducted by independent accountants when managing substantial assets. These requirements create transparency that protects both the elderly person and the power of attorney holder from accusations of impropriety. Emergency revocation procedures must be clearly established in advance, allowing other family members to quickly suspend power of attorney authority when abuse is suspected. These procedures should include specific triggers for automatic review, such as complaints from healthcare facility staff, unusual banking activity alerts, or concerns raised by the elderly person themselves. The second protection strategy establishes comprehensive monitoring systems that involve multiple family members in ongoing financial oversight, preventing any single person from controlling information flow or restricting access to financial records. This approach directly addresses the isolation tactics that enabled Marcus's crimes. Geographic distribution challenges require creative solutions when family members live in different cities or states. Technology platforms now allow multiple family members to access the same financial accounts with different permission levels, enabling real-time monitoring without requiring physical proximity to banking institutions or elderly relatives. The monitoring protocol should designate specific family members as financial advocates, with defined responsibilities for reviewing different aspects of elder financial management. One family member might focus on healthcare expenses, another on general living costs, and a third on investment or savings account activity. This distributed approach ensures comprehensive coverage while preventing oversight responsibilities from becoming overwhelming for any individual. Healthcare facility financial monitoring requires family members to maintain direct relationships with billing departments, nursing staff, and facility administrators. Multiple family members should receive copies of all bills, care plans, and facility communications to prevent any single person from controlling information about care costs or service changes. The monitoring system must include direct communication channels between elderly family members and multiple relatives that cannot be intercepted or controlled by power of attorney holders. These channels might include separate phone lines, email accounts managed by different family members, or regular visits scheduled independently of the primary caregiver's knowledge. Financial alert systems should be established with banks, investment firms, and credit card companies to notify multiple family members about specified types of account activity. These alerts create real-time awareness of financial changes and prevent delayed discovery of potentially fraudulent activity. The third essential strategy focuses on establishing strong advocacy relationships with healthcare facilities that protect elderly individuals from isolation while ensuring their genuine care needs are met. This strategy addresses the institutional vulnerabilities that Marcus exploited at Sunset Manor. Family advocacy rights must be clearly documented and communicated to all healthcare facility staff, not just nursing supervisors or administrative personnel. Every staff member who interacts with elderly patients should understand that multiple family members have rights to information about patient well-being, and that visitor restrictions imposed by any single family member should be questioned and documented. Healthcare facility selection should prioritize institutions with specific training programs for recognizing elder abuse and clear protocols for reporting suspected financial or psychological exploitation. Families should request information about staff training, incident reporting procedures, and policies regarding family visitor restrictions before selecting care facilities. The communication protocol should establish regular direct contact between multiple family members and healthcare facility staff, bypassing any single family member's control over information flow. These communications might include scheduled monthly meetings with nursing supervisors, direct phone numbers for family members to contact facility staff, and written protocols for handling concerns raised by family members about patient care or family dynamics. Legal documentation should clearly specify which family members have authority to receive medical information, make healthcare decisions, and communicate with facility staff. This documentation prevents confusion about family hierarchies while ensuring that multiple people maintain oversight of elderly relatives' well-being. Emergency intervention procedures must be established with healthcare facilities, allowing any family member to request immediate evaluation of suspected abuse or exploitation. These procedures should include specific protocols for contacting adult protective services, law enforcement, and medical professionals when abuse is suspected. Comprehensive legal protection requires establishing documentation systems that create accountability trails while protecting elderly individuals' privacy and dignity. These systems should balance security concerns with respect for elder autonomy and family relationships. The legal framework must include regular review of all legal documents, including power of attorney agreements, wills, trust documents, and healthcare directives. These reviews should occur annually or when significant life changes occur, such as health status changes, family relationship changes, or major financial transitions. Professional oversight through attorneys specializing in elder law provides independent evaluation of family financial management and legal document adequacy. These professionals can identify potential vulnerabilities, recommend protective measures, and serve as neutral parties when family conflicts arise regarding financial management decisions. The documentation system should maintain separate records controlled by different family members, preventing any single person from controlling all information about elderly relatives' financial and medical status. These distributed records create redundancy that protects against information manipulation or destruction. Subscribe and ring the bell for more family wealth protection cases. And tell me in the comments, what family financial protection strategy will you implement first? Case file number 087 demonstrates that protecting elderly family members from financial exploitation requires proactive planning, multi-layered oversight systems, and ongoing vigilance from multiple family members. The $165,000 theft from Dolores Martinez could have been prevented through proper implementation of these 3 protection strategies, saving not only financial resources, but also preventing the devastating psychological trauma that accompanied the financial crimes. The legal precedents established through Marcus Rivera's prosecution create additional protections for elderly individuals in healthcare facilities, but families cannot rely solely on institutional safeguards. Personal responsibility for implementing comprehensive protection systems remains the most effective defense against financial predators who exploit family relationships and institutional vulnerabilities. Understanding these protection strategies empowers families to create security frameworks that preserve elderly relatives' independence while preventing financial exploitation. The investment in prevention systems pays dividends not only in financial security, but also in family peace of mind and elderly individuals' confidence that their loved ones remain committed to their protection and well-being.